So this is from the Anguttara Nikaya, and it's called Flies. And the Blessed One says, Bhikkhus, this morning I dressed, took my bowl and robe, and entered Varanasi for alms. While walking for alms near the cattle yoking fig tree, I saw a dissatisfied bhikkhu seeking gratification outwardly, muddle-minded, confused, without clear comprehension, uncomposed, with a wandering mind and loose sense faculties. Having seen him, I said to that bhikkhu, Bhikkhu, do not pollute yourself. It is inevitable that flies will pursue and attack one who has polluted himself and been tainted by a stench. Then, being exhorted thus, that bhikkhu acquired a sense of urgency. When this was said, a certain bhikkhu asked the Blessed One, what, Bhante, is meant by pollution? What is the stench and what are the flies? And he says, longing is what is meant by pollution, polluting yourself. Ill will is the stench. Bad, unwholesome thoughts are flies. It is inevitable that flies will pursue and attack one who has polluted himself and been tainted by a stench. So you can have these unwholesome thoughts, these repetitive evil thoughts of lust, of ill will. Why is that? Why are these flies there?
Yeah. So how do you deal with the flies? You try to kill every fly individually, preventing the thoughts, dealing with them, antidoting them, managing them, removing them, or remove the reason why they're coming back. Ill will, longing, lust, distraction. Remove that, these thoughts will stop coming. We keep saying that.
Yeah. You don't want the flies.
So that's how you abandon them.
Yeah.
You have flies abandon you by removing that which flies want.
The stench.
Yeah. And you maintain the stench, you maintain the pollution by acting out, by not being restrained, by not enduring things on the right level. That's exactly how you maintain craving and longing and aversion towards pain and wanting pleasure, all the reasons that these flies keep coming back. So guard your sense those, protect the context, don't act out, endure things on the right level, and flies will stop coming.
And they can come back.
If you lose your behavior, if you start acting, if you start basically accruing again the stench, accumulating the stench, and the flies will come back. Yeah. It's not something that can be done accidentally. Sure, it can be done carelessly, but because you kept choosing to act out and go back to desires and lose your sense restraint and abandon the context and give in to distraction and so on. So then the flies will come back. But if you're of the view that the flies are the problem and you must be dealing with the flies, through concentrating and this and that and method to stop thinking and all these like practices and whatever people would misunderstand from the suttas, then you're still not emptying the rubbish because of which the flies are coming. You're just chasing the flies more vehemently.
You're putting up these barriers, external barriers.
Sure, nets and
borders, machines,
and traps and repellents, but fundamentally.
Yeah. While the very problem is the thing that's putting up the borders and the traps. Yeah,
that's where the bad smell is.
Yeah.
So that's when you can spend the whole life of management, successful to a degree, skilled with protected circumstances and so on. Fundamentally, no, you're still in the same domain. So if you have thoughts of ill will or thoughts of lust, and I must get rid of it, this is the problem. No, that's the symptom of the problem. Those thoughts are there because your mind, as said many times, and in the suttas as well, frequently ponders and dwells on things that are attracting lust, lustful thoughts, and angry thoughts, and thoughts of ill will, and thoughts of distraction. So don't frequently ponder on those themes. What themes? Well, themes of pleasure is valuable, themes of aversion of pain is justified, themes of these things belong to me, and I feel entitled to act out and be free from suffering and get this and get my jhana and get whatever else. I don't want to have to deal with this. The themes of I, the themes of mine. All these themes that are contradictory to the universal nature of experience.
Those wrong views.
Exactly.
All the dirt.
Yeah, they're perpetuating your attitudes of dirt, the attitudes of longing, the attitude of aversion,
Yeah, that's stench.
Wanting pleasure, aversion to pain, and everything else that comes out of those fundamental cravings.
And you can't start the cleansing if you have that wrong view that it is the world that is making me.
It's the flies that make me stink. Yeah. No.
And that's why. Yeah.
That's not where the stench is.
Yeah.
That's the symptom of the stench. If there are flies, means there is something. And again, colloquially, flies keep coming back. I better check this room. I better check this building. It's something they keep coming back for.
But if you can't even admit that, then you don't have that mundane right view.
Yeah, and you wouldn't admit that because it's just too much aversion towards flies.
Yeah,
Lustful thoughts, I must get rid of it. Anger, I must get rid of it. That's where the problem is. And then the idea of what meditation is, it sort of follows out of that. Okay, let me just concentrate when I'm not aware of these things anymore. When I stop hitting the flies. That's how I'm free from it. No. That's just how you learn how to concentrate and look away from them.
So, seeing where the stench is coming from, accepting that the flies are there because of there's a stench.
So not wasting, not perpetuating your views of trying to deal with the flies, but actually focus of presence of flies means simultaneous presence of the that which flies are attracted to. So lustful thoughts cannot exist, cannot assail me. I cannot be liable to them unless there is a simultaneously present state of lustful mind. Where is that lustful mind? It's not on the level of the flies and thoughts. It's on the level of signs and features, as we said before. So how do I discern that? What do I look for? What do I need to do in that sense? But if all you do is feel justified about dealing with the flies through all sorts of management techniques and concentrations and so on, then there's none of this can apply to you.
But that's seeing where the problem is. That's close to the right view. That mundane. It's sure. It's almost.
It's kind of necessary for the right view. Yeah. Because if you don't even see where the problem is, you won't be able to learn how to endure things rightly. Mm-hmm. For you, endurance would just be, I just have to put up with these flies and do nothing. No? You still got to do something, but it mustn't be aimed at the flies. But all I see is flies and doing something towards flies. Well, exactly. So you need to learn how else to do something without doing what you take for granted to be done. Deal with the flies. Deal with things that bother me.
The middle way.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be trying to deal with things all the time, manage things which are not the actual problem, even if you're doing the Buddhist so-called calling your techniques and your management,
sure, verbatim, whatever, do what the sutta says. You're not doing it on the right level.
And then in a very dangerous situation as well, because now you're establishing that for yourself as the way out of suffering, when in fact it's not.
And then you feel even more justified in managing it and dealing with the flies and preventing flies from coming, not by removing the bait, but by setting up further traps and controlling your environment and avoiding things that disturb you, like you saw.
So how does one get the right view?
By not dealing with the flies.
By reflecting on
where the problem is.
What is?
Although, everything, all my senses are pointing me, it's because of this. This is why I'm lustful. This is why I'm angry. That's not what the Buddha said.
Mm-hmm.
The root of suffering is craving, not the world, not things in the world, not sense objects, not senses, not your thoughts. It's the craving in regard to what is felt. So that's always on me. And that's exactly why the right view starts with understanding what suffering is. Presence of craving means presence of suffering, not presence of flies or presence of this or that. So what is that craving that I need to understand? Well, if you discern it, understand it, see its signs and features, that is the right view. You saw the cause of suffering, truly, correctly, accurately. Then you will know exactly what the escape from it is. You wouldn't need to figure that out as a next step or something. Seeing the presence of craving means so absence of craving means absence of suffering, regardless of the flies and the circumstances. So how can I have that craving always absent? And that's the Noble Eightfold Path. You might not see it innate terms as the Buddha described it, but you would see exactly what that path is in the broad strokes. Sense restraint, guarding of the sense doors, not acting out, enduring things on the right level until this gratuitous aversion towards discomfort is abandoned, which is craving. Gratuitous aversion towards discomfort that you take for granted is your craving. Gratuitous delight towards comfort is your craving. That's how there's no a thing, a craving that you can witness with your senses. It's always the background context that's maintained through a careless attitude of pleasure. I'm leaning towards just by default, no reason, and the reason is you haven't considered well, thoroughly, frequently, often enough that leaning towards pleasure is actually dangerous. That's the danger. Not presence or absence of pleasure in the world and everything that might come. No, it's leaning is the trap. Accepting that attitude is how you get trapped. Leaning away from pain, just gratuitously, no, not wanting it. It's like, why? Oh, because you never really considered it thoroughly on that level.
That leaning towards, that's the longing.
Leaning away, that's the aversion.
The stench,
Yeah, that's the stench.
And then the suffering, the flies.
That's all the consequences of it.
So
if there is no leaning, there would be no flies. If there is no leaning towards pleasure, there would be no lustful thoughts. If there is no leaning away from pain, i.e. aversion, craving, there would be no angry thoughts, no thoughts of ill will, no thoughts of discomfort or discontent. That's what I mean. Thoughts and hindrances and everything else are the symptoms of the problem. Problem of your craving.
Mm-hmm. So this is the verse at the end of that sutta. And it says, the flies, thoughts based on lust, will run in pursuit of one unrestrained in the sense faculties, unguarded. A bhikkhu who is polluted, tainted by a stench, is far from nibbana and reaps only distress. Whether in the village or the forest, the unwise, foolish person, not having gained peace for himself, goes around followed by flies. But those accomplished in virtuous behavior, who delight in wisdom and peace, those peaceful ones live happily, having destroyed the flies. Having starved them away.
They'll die away.